Well, welcome, folks, and welcome, Maria and Denise. We are here today to talk with Maria Skiffington. And gosh, it is such an honor and a joy to be here with you today to talk about your journey, which started, God, so many years ago, it seems like. You just mentioned before we get on the call that we started in around 2015. Yep. Which feels like forever ago. And at that time, you were actually meeting with an endocrinologist that I used to work with back in Medford, Massachusetts, which is where I was born. And we had worked together over 30 years ago. So talk about a small world.
Yes.
And as you know, I partnered with Denise. We have actually just birthed Intrinsic Wholeness, which is like such an exciting culmination of both of our joys and our passions in terms of the work that we're doing and in terms of actually whole health person care and really bringing together the science and the spirituality and the sacredness of what life really brings to all of us. So one of our focuses is really on women in transition. And, that could be women in their mid to late 30s or 40s or 50s or even beyond that. We just got off a call today with a woman in her 70s. And we're always in that process of transition. And, one of the things that is so special about our work is that we started in the medical arena, which is where I started out, many, many years ago as a registered dietitian. Oftentimes joke and say I never wanted to be the dietitian with the hairnet in the basement of the hospital, so I left that arena as quickly as possible. But, there is something to be said about coming into the work of medicine in the medical world. So, Maria, we'd love to have you share with us a little bit about your process, from when we began back in 2015.
Okay, well, first we say thanks. It's great to be here. I really love what you guys are doing. It's watching everything unfold on social media and on your website. Really resonates with me, especially like with herbalism and learning more about the whole history of that, but we can talk about that later. So what got me to where I'm at is before I even met with Julie, I was kind of on a road where, my children were teenagers and it was time to really just take a step back and look at what I was doing. And I was learning about different things about food and how it affects your health. And I had been a pescatarian. That was what I was doing. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And so I did that for a while. And I was on the road to becoming a vegetarian when I got a diagnosis of having Graves' disease. So with that diagnosis, I started to think, oh, hey, there must be some ways to, change my lifestyle or my diet or something like that. But I, went the traditional route, talked to my primary care was the one who said you had Graves' disease based on my labs. She advised that I go meet this endocrinologist, which Julie just mentioned she had worked with before. So I did that. And I remember in the first meeting with him is just ingrained in my brain because I said, he goes, well, here's what's going to happen. We're going to monitor your labs. You're going to go on medicine for a period of time. And then we will either remove your thyroid or burn it out with radioactive iodine. And I just,
wow,
it was like a cartoon, boing, that surprise. And I was like, that's basically how it's going to go. I go, what about, diet and exercise and lifestyle changes? What about that kind of thing? He goes, oh, we all need to diet and exercise, don't we? And then kind of just dismissed me. And I went off, and walking out that door, I knew I wasn't going to be with him forever. So while I was trying to figure all that out, because I didn't really know much about Graves' disease and I didn't have too many symptoms and I was dealing with this new medicine, I decided to look into the nutrition aspect of it. And that is how I found Julie. So I probably 2 months after I was diagnosed and started seeing my endocrinologist is when I started to see Julie. And, I was telling her all the, my path with food, and I was ready to be a vegetarian. And she looked at all the, diagnoses and the labs and all the other things that I brought forward to her and was like, you need animal protein. So that was where I decided, okay, I'm not going to be a vegetarian, but I started following Julie's dietary recommendations, which included no gluten, no dairy, 20 ounces of protein per meal, very low sugar, and things like that. And I started on that path. So that was how I came to be working with Julie. I don't know if that answers your question, or if you need me to. I can.
No, that's great. That's great. And I remember, I also, luckily you had a wonderful primary care doc, so we were able to kind of collaborate and work out labs to be done and things of that nature. And you were also dealing with some high blood sugars at that time, and cholesterol and stuff like that. That whole inflammation piece of life. And so I know that we were talking about all of those different kinds of things. And what really impressed me is that, you come from an Italian background, so pasta and cheese and bread and all those things were like always so important to you, but you really did your due diligence in terms of trying new foods. And, one of the things that I've said to people over and over again is, you can retrain your brain to like new foods. And you actually did that. In fact, you introduced me or us to a new bread called Pacha bread. I'm loving that stuff. It's got buckwheat and sourdough starter. And so you've actually been, such a wonderful person to say, hey, you can come and enjoy and love these foods, and you can also transition into healthier, options and things like that. So that's been great.
Yeah, it has been, it's been a challenge because, there's no getting away from that traditional food, especially during holidays. So but at home when I cook, I don't cook that way. That my husband and daughter will eat pasta, but I will have a salad and something else, but while they're eating that. But I do like during the holidays, I might have a teeny weeny bit just to remember what it tastes like, but it's not part of my regular diet at all. And it's funny because what you said, retrain your brain to like different foods. My husband, who was very limited in his diet, has really come to like vegetables. He was a canned veggie guy and that was it. 2 kinds, that was it. And now he's like trying all this stuff. And he goes, this is great. This is delicious. So he's learned to like different foods, and it's good now because it's not always 3 different meals. It's just, so yeah.
That's really wonderful. The other thing that we had started to kind of embrace and work upon as you were sort of going through the different stressors, because now come up into the time of COVID, and what was going on in terms of school, but we had actually started some of these conversations, these deeper conversations around like, what are my unique gifts and what are the things that I really want to bring forth in life? And there was so much fear and trepidation and like, oh my God, I need to pull my own weight and, all of that. And I would love to hear a little bit about sort of some of that transition, that ickiness and stickiness that you were experiencing that we also kind of entertained and worked through.
Yeah. So yeah, right around throughout COVID, a lot of things were going on at the same time. The education system is, and it's even getting worse, is getting a little bit stressful for teachers, where, they didn't have a voice and you just have to keep, you didn't have any supports. And we had to wing it through COVID, and then, after we had 1 year of COVID and wing it and kept everything together for the final few months of the year, they started, they started imposing things upon you, and you just had to like learn on the fly and just deal with all this stress. And so while all that, you're trying to juggle all that, that's like what's in front of you, right? So what's in front of you is teaching. It's your job, and it's your whole life. Okay. So because especially during COVID, you would do your day and then come home and do your recordings for the people who were home. The students were home because you were in and out of school. Some people were in school, some people were out, and then they would switch. So you would have to go home and do your, get your little work on the Google Classroom, get your videos done for those kids, so you were constantly working. At the same time, in the back of my head was trying to keep my health going, because we all know that stress is a huge, factor in inflammation and in autoimmune diseases. So here I am in this high stress situation, trying to figure out, okay, how can I keep myself from being stressed out. I would do walks when we the one lucky thing about COVID was our lunches when we were home were an hour long. We barely got 20 minutes in school. So I would take a walk. I would take a mindful walk. I would take no headphones, no nothing. And that's still how I headphones. I walk with nothing just because you can like get so much from nature, even in a city like where I live. You really can, just like right out in the, I make sure I walk through there's a little park that's a forest park. And then I walk through 2 cemeteries and they're very beautiful and, nature filled. So I got to like get stress relief from that. I also, would journal, which is one of the things that you would often recommended that I do is journal. Worked with my crystals. I have one right here. And looked into just my own herbal healing. And that's one of the things I tell people a lot when they come and see me, like if I'm at a farmer's market, all of the stuff you see in my shop or on my table is because somebody in my family needed it or I needed it. So I started out with all the stress relief stuff, like the lemon balms and all this kind of like, first it was just tea, then I would do like some balms or some things you could smell, like aromatherapy. Then I got more into like medicinal things like tinctures. So all during COVID, in between my work, I would just come up with some different remedies for myself. And that was kind of how I dealt with all that stress and where my first kind of like road into herbalism began. So also around the same time, I started to realize how old my parents were getting and how I'm the only sibling in this state near them. So my brother's in Vegas, my sister's in New York. I knew I was going to be the one helping them through things. So I decided to, another lucky thing, my school's 403B person who comes to the school was a really great guy. And he would ask me, like the first thing he would ask me is, how are you doing? Not about my finances, not how we can shift this around, that around. And I'm like, dude, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can. So just a tiny little background. I was in advertising before I was a teacher. And I started teaching at, it's like in my 40s, 42. So it was like another, big change. And I was like, what that means is I'm not going to make the pension that people who get out of school when they're in their 20s to become a teacher. I would either have to work till I was 75 as a teacher to collect the 80% pension or figure something out. So I figured something out. I was like, I can't do it. I can't even see me at 65 doing this job. So that financial advisor really helped me out. And he's like, I bet you we can do this. I bet you we can do this. So he pulled together a conference call with his partners and my husband. We gave them they asked us for all this information, gave them everything. He goes, you can do it. You can do it on the limited pension you'll get. Because, so they helped us figure out a plan. I was scared, not just because of the income, even though that's still, we're doing great. I'm amazed, to be honest. And I'm like, I must have spent all that money on school supplies because how are we still doing okay? We're not in a mansion. We don't have a bunch of great new things, but we're not struggling, which is really a big relief because that was scary. But the thing that was really hard was I'm nothing. And I know I had this conversation with you, yep. Julie, in my darker days that I was just like, I'm nothing now. I was a teacher. And now I lost my identity. I still kind of get a little emotional about it because as women, I think we do attach ourselves to what the world sees us as. And to me, this was one of the biggest learning experiences of leaving teaching. It's like, I'm not nothing. I'm not a teacher anymore, but I'm not nothing. And that was something that really I had to come to terms with. And it's still taking some time, especially when I talk with my friends who are teachers, I go out with my friends, but like this week they're doing conferences and report cards and I'm like, have fun. I'm glad I'm not doing that, but, I just, it is a thing I struggle with, and that I feel like I'm doing better with. And it does go into that whole thing where you need to look at the whole person. Being a teacher is just a piece of me. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a daughter, I'm an herbalist, I'm a lot of different things. And that's what I try to focus on when I'm feeling nothing. I'm not a teacher. What am I? So.
Oh my God, I started to feel tears in that respect. So this is a great segue into the work that Denise is bringing into what we're doing, because I know you and I had these really difficult and heart-wrenching and soul-searching conversations.
Yeah.
And this is kind of where we're expanding into intrinsic wholeness. So Denise, I know you've got questions and comments and things.
my
So please,
goodness.
please
Yes. Thank you, Maria. I think thank you so much for sharing that. I think that you really are bringing it full circle. A lot of the things that I do as a coach is to really support and create a sacred space for our clients to be able to come to these insights. I know that you started, your journey started with conventional medicine, but you came to a place where you had to dig deeper and really start asking yourself some of these questions like, who am I? Who am I without all these roles in my life? When I'm not being the teacher or the mother or the wife or the daughter, those types of things, and get to the deeper layers of the conditioning and the shoulds and all the things, the people pleasing and the roles and the everything else. And really from there, embark on that deeper healing, just see ourselves as the disease or the illness that we carry. Because so you touched upon something that's super, super important. And that's when you get that initial diagnosis, it almost feels like this is me and this will be me forever. And you had the courage to see beyond that and to not accept that as a label for yourself, and to look outside of that, to think outside the box. So as someone that obviously loves working with women and helps to support them to go into this deeper journey, are there any thoughts that you can share with us, that we can share with our clients in terms of, what did you learn about yourself going to those deeper levels?
Well, I learned that I'm a more resilient than I thought I was, and that I don't know, that if I just look inside, I try the advice I always give, like my daughters, like just like take what's right in front of you right now and deal with that, because we tend to like project, that's it, I'm not a teacher anymore. What's going to happen in a year or whatever? Just like take it as it comes. Try, like, don't be afraid to try things. And the biggest thing is like, ask the question, because you're not going to know. If you don't try something, you're not going to know until you get into it and pursue it. There are so many, I talked to teachers today. They're like, oh no, I have to stay till I'm 60. I'm like, you don't know unless you look into it. If you're unhappy, do you really want to be unhappy until you're 65? These people are in their 40s. And I'm like, just if something's not sitting right with you, you're the only person who's going to really be able to make that change. So don't think it's that impossible, because it's not traditional. Like I learned from Julie. Now I know that there is a place for traditional medicine, and Julie even agrees with that.
Yes.
But I'm sorry. Can you hear the roofers? I'm sorry. I hope they stop. Anyway, I feel like you don't have to dismiss all that, but just be open to other things and look around. There's so much out there available, so much information, and so many people to help. So I feel like that I just learned to just keep looking and just keep trying and do your research. And that, that's kind of what I didn't have a little bit more faith in yourself. But at the same time, I think that you kind of need a little bit of like a spiritual break. I do read different things. Like I read Bruce Lee's Be Water, My Friend. I don't know if you've heard of that book, but it's a really great book about being able to be like water, and water flows and water crashes, and you do whichever you have to at the moment. And it's a thing. I even made a grid around it. I made a crystal grid with things that. And you want me to move? Sorry, can you hear them?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's fine.
All right. So I try to live my life by that. And am I perfect at it? No, but I don't go and say, okay, forget it. I'm not doing good with that, and abandon it. Just get right back on that track and keep yourself moving forward. That's kind of how I have been doing it. I don't, all my days aren't glorious and wonderful, but they're not all horrible either. When I start to get into that, those moods where, those feelings where I'm just, this is stressful. I don't think I can do this. I just take myself back. I'll meditate. I'll do yoga. I'll, take a walk, read a book, something to like, just make me feel like, okay, drink some tea, something that makes you feel like you can handle it, because you can handle what you think. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That's so
Thank you so much.
awesome.
Speaking of tea, please share with us about your new business.
Okay. So, when I decided to, not be a teacher anymore, I wasn't sure what to do, but I did know that I wanted to try to work on this business. I'm also working at a library part-time, but this business I have is an herbal business. And so the more I looked into herbal businesses, the more nervous I became, because herbal remedies and medicine are frowned upon in this country. They're not approved by the FDA, even though they have been used for centuries with much success.
Right.
So I kind of, not accidentally, but like the natural next step was, I need to protect myself, right? If I'm going to put this stuff out there, I need to be protected. So I went ahead and got an LLC done for my business. Okay. So now I'm an LLC. Then like the more different things I signed up for, I found you need to get some insurance. So I got insurance. So now that I have all that stuff, I'm able to like work on some of these medicines. So the things that I mostly focus on are teas, because teas are very healing. And a lot of people look at medicinal teas as tasting medicinal, but that's one of the things that I feel like I have some talent in, because a lot of people like my tea. I work to make sure I bring the elements of the medicine in, but you have to have it taste good. And believe it or not, if you do enough research, you can find an herb that does the job, but also makes the tea taste good. So I have a few. I have one that's calming. I have one for sleep. I have one for, I'm drinking right now, one for immune building. So echinacea and things like that. I put cardamom in it to give it more of a nice flavor. I have one for brain health. So it's got rosemary and things like that for mental focus and acuity. And one that's not on the shop yet, even though I've had it, I don't know, I just haven't gotten to that. One for acid reflux. So, but all these things like that tea came about because my brother-in-law was having trouble with acid reflux. So I'm like, oh, let me give you some peppermint tincture. So I go home and I look up. I knew peppermint tincture was good for upset stomach, but is it good for acid reflux? Well, no, it's not, because peppermint relaxes the sphincter, and that's your problem when you have acid reflux. So I'm kind of learning about the health aspects as I go. I'm also in the middle of a course with Rosemary Gladstar. She's a really big herbalist.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I made on the spot, I made this tea for him, and it's been working great. He's like, I need more of this tea. So now I have it as a product. So I have teas, which teas are probably the easiest things to keep inventory of. Tinctures, which are very effective because they're faster into the system, take 6 weeks per batch to make. So when I run out, like I'm always trying to make sure, okay, wait, what am I running low on? But then you don't want to have too much of a thing. So it's been a balancing act. So tinctures are another line that I have. And then I also have balms. I have a few, just a headache balm, a calm balm. I have like a natural Neosporin and a cuticle balm. And then I have a couple of, yeah, that was pretty good. I also, I developed a nail strengthening balm, oil, because my mom's fingernails from the medicine, they break and won't grow. So my oil helps keep them strong. It doesn't help them grow. I haven't been able to figure that out yet, but it does keep them strong so that they're not snagging and breaking while they're very short. So like I said, developed because of her, but I made it a product. I have a couple of facial oils that I developed for myself and I put in the shop. One is for mature skin. It's got like rose hip oil and frankincense, some other oils in it that keep your skin looking nice. And I have a cleansing oil, which I use to clean my skin. And so I think besides that, so it's just teas, tinctures, balms, and oils.
Wow.
Yeah.
I remember when you first started out with teas and you had these pretty pictures on your social media. So what are your sites? How can people get a hold of your products? And we'd love to support you in that.
So the name of the company is Mindful Lion Botanicals. And I am on Instagram, which is where I also try to post herbal information, because Etsy will pull down a product if you say anything medicinal. So it's like literally the product's up there, you need to figure it out kind of thing. So I try to do like spotlights on certain herbs. So my Instagram is mindful.lion.botanicals. My Etsy is Mindful Lion Botanical, because they wouldn't let me, I ran out of letters. So I can't have that. It's crazy. I was just like, you can't give me one more letter. So they don't. So, and I'm on Facebook at Mindful Lion Botanicals as well. That's pretty new. I just recently started that just because I have a lot of Facebook friends, and my Instagram's kind of like divided into a few different pieces. So just figured a way to drive some traffic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God, Maria, this has been such a delight, to kind of hear the story and hear the history up until now, and also just about your business. So
it's been great to share it, and you guys have been, such a helpful. I always tell people I have been in remission from Graves' disease since 2018, and I have to credit you, Julie. I mean, working together on the diet and on the supplements, I just feel like I see people I'm on a couple of Facebook groups for Graves' disease, and these people are struggling. And I'm like, I want to say, I have shared my whole story with them. Like I literally have in a document I cut and paste, because when they ask me, I'm like, okay, here you go. But people don't want to do the work. And if it's not as hard. It's not as hard as it seems. And I have even relatives who I'll say, you should stop drinking this. Or like my dad was big into the aspartame and the diet drinks, and like, stop drinking that. No, I like it. I can't live forever. I'm gonna, so it's hard. I get it. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Thank you. Thank you for doing the
Thank
work
you.
and for being an inspiration to others as well. We can't wait to share it with everyone. It's such a wonderful success story. And the fact that, you also talk about the lows. It's not just the highs, it's also the lows, but having that resilience and having that strength to move forward.
Yeah, it's true. And it's worth it. It's worth it. It might, it gets a little tough sometimes, but to be not, when I see what some of these people are going through with Graves, to be not there, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. So,
yeah. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you.
And, yes, we wish you the best. We'll
Thank
follow
you.
you on social media.
You too. We'll be talking to you.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.